Somewhere past midnight on July 27th, Russia's defense ministry logged its first intercepted drone of the night. By morning, it would claim 276 of them shot down, a number meant to sound like victory. It said nothing about the one target that actually mattered, more than 1,000 miles from anywhere Russia thought this war could reach. Tonight's story is about a single night, one country, and a target so far from the fighting that the people guarding it never seriously trained for the possibility it would be found. Welcome back. Let's start where the night did. Not in Udmurtia, but on the coast, hours earlier. The first strikes landed in Rostov Oblast, roughly 250 kilometers from the front line. Close enough that Russian air defense there trains for this constantly. Drones hit the export terminal at Rostov-on-Don's seaport. 2 people were killed, 5 injured. Fires spread to a nearby enterprise and warehouses. Governor Yuri Slusar's own casualty figures shifted between statements that morning, the kind of detail that tends to surface when a report is being written faster than it can be confirmed. Nearby, Taganrog was hit the same night. Ship tracking data showed civilian vessels still moving on the river near the port at the moment of the strike, a reminder that this particular stretch of coastline hadn't stopped functioning as a working harbor, even as it kept absorbing hit after hit. This was the layer of the attack Russia was built to expect. Strikes near the war zone, on infrastructure everyone already assumed was a target. What Russia was not built to expect was what happened next. While air defense crews on the coast were still working the Rostov fires. Deep inside the interior, past Moscow, past the Volga, into the Udmurt Republic, a region that had never seriously featured on anyone's list of frontline concerns, drones were already in the air, closing on a facility called Prioritet, in a village called Borok. According to Belarusian outlet Charter 97, citing monitoring channels tracking the raid, the aircraft that reached it had flown nearly 2,500 kilometers to get there. Not a straight line from the border, a rooted, deliberate path threading around known air defense coverage the entire way. Even measured as the crow flies, Ukraine's own general staff put the facility at more than 1,300 kilometers from Ukrainian territory. Either number describes the same fact. Nothing about this target's location was supposed to make it reachable. Here's what made Prioritet worth flying that far for. Before its current name, the facility was known as Gorizont. It's part of Rosrezerv, Russia's state material reserve system, a closed, armed, guarded site that Ukraine's general staff describes as a major oil depot of national importance, built to hold fuel, petroleum products, and lubricants specifically for emergencies and military needs. This isn't a gas station. It's the fuel Russia set aside for the exact kind of prolonged war it's currently fighting, stored in a location chosen, in part because reaching it was assumed to be someone else's problem. Facilities inside the Rosrezerv system don't publish inventories or capacity figures, don't appear on ordinary maps under names civilians would recognize, and generally don't get discussed at all until something forces them into a headline. Which is exactly the kind of institutional quiet that let a site like this one operate under a different name for years, without ever becoming a household word, right up until the night it did. Regional Governor Alexander Breshlov confirmed the strike himself on Telegram, before Kyiv said a word. He called it the most massive attack the Republic had faced in recent memory, said air defenses were engaging, and asked residents not to spread what he called false information. The kind of message a local government sends when it's still deciding how much of the truth is safe to admit out loud. It's worth noticing what that message doesn't do. It doesn't deny a strike happened, doesn't name a target, and doesn't offer any alternative explanation. It simply asks people to wait and trust the version that hasn't been written yet. What he didn't dispute was the fire. Ukraine's general staff confirmed the strike as successful on July 28th, with a blaze recorded at the site. Now here's the detail that turns this from a single strike into a portrait of an entire night. Prioritet wasn't the only thing burning. In the same overnight window, Ukrainian forces also struck a logistics warehouse and a fuel and lubricants depot near Ichki in occupied Crimea, and a drone storage facility near Krasnopopivka in Luhansk Oblast. One coordinated push reaching from a port on the Black Sea coast to a closed strategic reserve deep in Russia's interior, hitting 3 entirely different categories of target: maritime export, occupied territory logistics, and a national fuel reserve, in the same rotation of darkness. Stretch a map between Rostov-on-Don and Borok in Udmurtia, and you're looking at a line covering roughly the same distance as crossing several European countries end to end. All of it, notionally, defended by the same integrated national air defense network on the same single night. That's the part Russia's own numbers can't hide, even when they're trying to. Officials claim 276 drones intercepted that night, a number built to sound like the defense worked. But intercepting hundreds of decoys and secondary drones means nothing if the handful that actually mattered still got through, and on this particular night, in at least 3 separate regions, they did. A 276 on a briefing slide is the kind of statistic that flatters whoever reads it aloud and says almost nothing about whether the target that actually counted survived the night. It's the same trick as claiming a near-perfect save percentage while ignoring the one shot that actually crossed the line. Technically accurate and completely beside the point to anyone standing where the fire ended up. There's a small, almost accidental detail worth sitting with before we close. Gorizont reported that a nearby wild berries warehouse in Sarapul, close enough to Prioritet to fall inside the same blast radius of concern, had its staff evacuated during the attack. The warehouse itself wasn't damaged, but for a few hours that night, 2 Russian institutions that have nothing to do with each other on paper, a closed military fuel reserve and an ordinary parcel warehouse, shared the same evacuation order because in a country this size, distance used to be the thing that kept them separate, and on July 27th, it stopped being enough. 2 workers checking a delivery schedule and a guard detail protecting a strategic oil reserve ended up standing outside the same night for the same reason, without either job having anything in common the week before. None of this means Rosrezerv runs empty, or that Russia loses this war over one burning depot in a village most of its own citizens couldn't find on a map. Reserves exist across dozens of sites, and one fire doesn't collapse a national stockpile system built for exactly this kind of attrition. But the number that actually matters isn't 276, it's one. One facility, previously invisible enough to operate under a different name for years, now confirmed burning on a general staff report, reached by drones that flew roughly the distance from London to Moscow just to get there. A comparison worth sitting with, because that's not a raid on a border town. That's a raid that crossed the width of a continent. Russia counted 276 drones that night and called it a victory. It never mentioned the one that flew 2,500 kilometers and found exactly what it was looking for. A fire in a village whose name most Russians will never learn, on a facility that spent years being invisible on purpose. If a fuel reserve chosen specifically for its distance from the war can still burn, what target inside Russia is actually far enough away to feel safe anymore? And how long before the next name on that list is one nobody on either side saw coming?